I keep defending Shedeur Sanders, but boy, he was brutal against Chicago. I was there. Struggled with accuracy. He had a pick, whether it's his fault or not. I think he's athletic enough. And again, he fumbled a snap. Again, Cleveland's young. Maybe that's it. Deshaun Watson was solid, not special. That's a pretty bad throw. 39 passer rating. And it's not like the Bears defense is stacked. It's the weakest part of the team. They don't present a pass rush, and they were playing nothing but backup.
Colin Cowherd has done it again. And this time the flip is so sharp that even his most loyal viewers are struggling to keep up with him. For weeks, Cowherd stood as one of the loudest defenders of Shedeur Sanders, praising his poise, his production, and his ability to outperform circumstances that would have buried most rookies. Now, after a single preseason snap count against the Chicago Bears, Cowherd has reversed course entirely, declaring that Sanders looked like a bust and that his passer rating from that outing was among the worst he has seen from a quarterback in this position. The whiplash has been so obvious that clips of his old praise are being replayed right next to his new criticism, and the contrast is not doing him any favors with fans who remember exactly what he said just months ago. The specific comments came during a recent stretch of his show where Cowherd broke down Sanders' performance against Chicago and did not hold back. He argued that the numbers alone told the story, pointing to a passer rating he described as the worst possible sign for a quarterback trying to convince a franchise he deserves the keys to the offense. He went further, saying that Sanders was not just inefficient, but that his overall showing on the field was flat out terrible. And he tied that performance directly to a bigger claim, that he had been wrong to back Sanders as a potential starter in this league. That is a significant statement coming from someone who spent an entire offseason cycle championing the idea that Sanders was being unfairly slept on by the rest of the league.
Get your quarterback now and let him play with Matt Stafford. Well, I thought he was the best looking quarterback all weekend.
Cowherd did not stop at the raw stat line either. He pointed out that Sanders was not even facing a difficult defensive front, framing the Bears as a defense without a real pass rush, without the kind of pressure packages that would have made life difficult for a rookie quarterback still finding his footing. According to Cowherd, that context makes the performance look even worse, not better. If a young quarterback struggles against a defense that could not consistently get after the passer, then what happens when he faces a defense that can? That was the underlying argument, and it is the kind of framing designed to strip away any excuse before Sanders or his supporters could offer one. What makes this shift so jarring is how recently Cowherd was singing a completely different tune. Just a short time ago, when the broader football media was still divided on whether Sanders belonged in a starting conversation at all, Cowherd was one of the few major voices willing to go all in on him. He built an entire case using a 7-game stretch from Sanders' final season, pointing out that in that window, Sanders produced as many total touchdowns as players like Sam Darnold and Jordan Love managed over a similar run of games.
You heard right. He had as many total touchdowns behind that putrid O-line as Darnold, Herbert, and Jordan Love. Okay, so you can tell me what you want to hear. I'm going to give you numbers. He was productive, mobile enough, big enough.
That comparison carried weight specifically because of who Darnold and Love are. Darnold, of course, is coming off a Super Bowl run with Seattle and has been ranked inside the top 10 quarterbacks in the league by analysts, including Cowherd himself at the time. Love has been treated around the league as one of the more promising young passers in the NFC, someone teams point to as proof that patience with a young quarterback can pay off. For Sanders to match that kind of touchdown production and to do it behind an offensive line ranked near the bottom of the league, and to do it as a rookie who had not even locked down the starting job at the time, was presented by Cowherd as one of the more impressive, under-the-radar stretches college football had produced.
And I think Shedeur can play. It's a hill I'm going to die on. I think he was underdrafted. And listen, sometimes you miss. Brock Purdy, 7th round. Brock can play.
That praise did not come with hedging. Cowherd leaned into it, using it as ammunition against anyone who wanted to write Sanders off before he even got a real shot. It was the kind of statistical argument that is hard to dismiss on its face, because it was not built on hype or vibes, it was built on production against a backdrop of real disadvantages. And now, months later, that same analyst is using one preseason performance, a game that traditionally means very little in terms of long-term quarterback evaluation, to declare the opposite conclusion. He is not softening his old stance or adding nuance to it. He is walking away from it entirely and replacing it with a much harsher read, one that questions whether Sanders belongs in a starting conversation at all. This is not the first time Cowherd has shown this pattern with Sanders. Rewind to the period around Sanders' actual draft slide and eventual landing spot, and Cowherd was far from a sympathetic voice. During that stretch, he was one of the more prominent media figures raising doubts, not just about Sanders' game, but about the noise surrounding his family and the perception that came with it.
That's what this is going to become. And I'll throw this out there for the doubters. Shedeur started the final 7 games last year for Cleveland, and their offensive line was putrid. It was ranked 31st. He had more touchdown passes in that stretch than Josh Allen.
That earlier round of skepticism is part of why this latest turn feels less like a fresh, honest reaction to one game and more like a return to an old position that had briefly been set aside. Supporters of Sanders have not forgotten that stretch, and they are quick to point out that Cowherd's willingness to criticize the family dynamic around Sanders long before he ever threw an NFL pass suggests a deeper skepticism that never fully went away, even during the months he spent praising him. That history is exactly why this newest reversal is landing the way it is. It is one thing for an analyst to change his mind based on new information over a long stretch of football. It is another thing entirely to build an entire narrative around a quarterback's toughness and production, only to abandon that narrative after a preseason game that does not even count in the standings and was played with backups and vanilla schemes on both sides of the ball. Preseason football exists specifically because teams do not want to show their full hand. Coordinators strip down playbooks, starters play limited snaps, and quarterbacks are often working with backup receivers and offensive linemen who will not make the final roster. Using that kind of small, low-stakes sample to declare a player a bust, especially right after using a much larger and more meaningful sample to declare him a hidden gem, is the exact kind of inconsistency that erodes trust in an analyst's takes over time. None of this means Sanders is immune to criticism or that every rough outing should be waved away. Rookie quarterbacks are supposed to have uneven stretches, and preseason football is one of the few environments where that unevenness is allowed to play out without real consequences. What stands out here is not that Sanders had a shaky game against Chicago. It is that Cowherd, of all people, is treating one shaky preseason outing as confirmation of a bust label after spending the better part of the offseason using far more substantial evidence to argue the opposite. If the pattern from the last year holds, this will not be the last time Cowherd revisits his own opinion on Sanders. He has shown a willingness to shift with the wind, sometimes praising Sanders as an underrated talent worth building around, other times painting him as someone who does not belong in the starting conversation at all. Sanders, for his part, has built a habit of answering doubt with performance rather than with words, and there is a real chance that a strong showing, once real football begins, will put Cowherd right back in the position of walking his comments back again, just as he has done before. Whether that happens or not, one thing is clear right now. Colin Cowherd is under fire, not because he criticized a rookie quarterback after a rough preseason snap, but because of how quickly and completely he abandoned the very argument he spent months building in Sanders' favor.